beta software, supply chain constraints, and the enterprise. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is sponsored by Upstart, fair and fast personal loans. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices and find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is MacVoices Live, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV, and you could be too. All you have to do is click over there, join us in the chat, and talk to us through the chat, talk to the other people in the chat, and we always have a good time. Tonight, we have a bit of a light show. First of all, I have a hard out in an hour. And so far, we've only had Mr. David Ginsburg show up. So I don't know where everybody else is.
Yeah.
David, good to have you.
Great to be here. We've got it seems like a quiet week in the Apple world. So trying to come up with some good stuff to talk about, and let's see where we go. But I'm doing really well.
Yeah. Well, we should say that there is a big event coming up here tomorrow. In the Apple world, and that's your birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
So
appreciate that.
So happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
How old are you? No, never mind. I shouldn't ask that. That's not good. That's not good.
I did get a good book. There's Jim. I did get a good book. I probably should show it. I was going to save it for the Mac show, but I might go grab it and show it. If you remember that Apple design book that they released. And that was like ridiculously priced. I think it was at like $500 or whatever it was, or something like that. And this was one of my sister-in-law's boyfriend gave it to me. It's an Apple design, and it was pretty cool. I should go grab it.
I think it was $300.
Was it $300? But now it's like $3,000 because you can't. It's out of print, and
yeah, that figures.
I think this one is only about $20, but it's actually really nice.
Yeah.
Which one's? Oh, somebody else did one?
Yeah. I'm gonna grab it.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
Taking a sip from his whatever he's sipping, Mr. Jim Ray. Jim, thank you for showing up. Good to have you.
Just water.
Sure it is, Jim.
Look, here's a new one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's why I always have the glass of water, so you know it's water.
Yeah.
Here, this is it.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one.
It's got a notch out of it.
Yeah, it's got the notch.
Yeah, it's got a notch. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got all the different stuff from
that had to have been more than $20 originally.
Oh,
you can't even buy a pamphlet for $20.
So I probably shouldn't be looking it up. Yeah, here there's the that's the hi-fi, the iPod hi-fi.
Yeah,
it's real blurry, but yeah, so it's a nice book.
Yeah, it looks like it. Looks like it. Yeah, good birthday gift.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, I was just saying it's going to be a little bit of a shorter show tonight because I have a bit of a hard out at the top of the hour, and we also said it's been kind of quiet in the Apple world today, or this week really. So, and you guys know how I feel about just talking about nothing just to fill time. A couple things did jump out at me though. I thought, especially today as we record this, that it seems like a lot of the news sites are really pushing the idea that, if you want a MacBook Pro or even an M1 MacBook for Christmas, you better be ordering or buying now because it looks like things are quickly sliding into next year. At least that's the way I'm reading it. And I'm wondering if sales are really that hot and that great, or the demand is such. Because if that is true, I mean, that's terrific. We also had the stories about Apple cannibalizing some iPad parts to be able to fulfill iPhone orders, which also I think that's a good thing as well. So those are always kind of difficult because you don't know where they're getting their information from and exactly what the quantification is of those. But at the end of the day, there's just no question that Apple products are really, really hot.
Yeah, and I think also, I also read that Apple lowered the price of the trade-in values of all the iPhones that came over this week. I don't know if you saw that, but boy, I guess they feel like they're giving out too much money for the older phones for trade-in. So they dropped some phones $30 to $50 in the trade-in. So real strange.
Well, that, or we talked about this on a previous show. The idea that whether they are able to cannibalize any or all of those parts to go into newer units or something.
Sure.
That would make sense. If you can pay less for that, then maybe you can fulfill things on another basis. And there's Mark Fuccio. He appears.
Okay.
Like in a newspaper.
Everybody froze for an instant.
He froze. It was like he was part of the newspaper for a minute there.
Yeah, you froze too. Yeah, it was a very interesting effect there, Mark.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mark, we were just saying that the reports about, well, David just brought up the lowering of Apple device trade-ins by Apple, the prices, and also just the reports that things are quickly going into sliding into late December, early January for orders. So the demand seems to be out there, especially for some of the new Apple hardware.
Yeah, I certainly believe that. And so we were saying lowering of prices. Was that on everything? Computers, tablets, phones?
I think the one I read just was talking about the phones.
It's talking about phones, but I would not be at all surprised with his iPads too.
Yeah, I think anything, if they can't satisfy demand, the last thing they should do is stimulate it through trade-ins. So That's not a surprise.
Yeah, which all points to it being potentially a very good quarter for Apple if they can. And I know we just finished talking about the last quarter, but a very good quarter for Apple if they can meet the demand. And even if not, I still subscribe to the idea that if I'm going to buy an Apple product and it's not available, I'm going to wait. I'm going to put my order in and I'm going to wait. I'm not going to go and order a Surface laptop or any of the others. Just not going to happen. So these purchases will be made sooner or later. It's just a question of when they will be made.
I agree with that. And on the earnings call, one of the analysts asked Tim Cook, how many of those are delayable versus may go elsewhere. And I think he gave a little bit of red meat to the analysts, and he said that if it's a gift, they'll probably go somewhere else. But I'm not so sure. I mean, if you're buying an iPhone for a child or a spouse or loved one, if their heart is set on an iPhone, are you really going to give them an Android device instead?
No. Don't do it.
Well, Mark, that's an interesting.
There could be people that would be on that bubble.
You think so, Jim?
Everybody's not like us. That
Yeah, but most of these things are okay. I mean, I might give you that on an Apple HomePod Mini, but most people, I think, at this point, are into an ecosystem, one or the other, and unless they are making a conscious switch, or unless they're looking for a reason to switch, I think they're just going to hang out and wait. Brad in the chat room says, I would say a majority of my clients are waiting on the next big iMac with Apple Silicon. And yeah, I would, I think that's another thing that a lot of people are waiting for. Mm-hmm. And Brad also says Apple gift certificate. Yeah, good idea, Brad. Good idea. Yeah,
Nothing wrong with Apple gift cards.
Yeah, David, you showed that book that you just got for your birthday. I'm going to put the link in the chat room. So for those of you that saw it,
there's only 2 left now because I just bought one.
For Mark, this is the book.
I can't see it. It's Apple Design. Oh, yep. This is the Ivy thing.
This is something else. This is something I got.
It's from 2011.
Yeah, it's old, but my sister-in-law's boyfriend gave it to me for a birthday present, and it's like, oh, that's really nice, and it's got some similar to that book. It's got all the old stuff in here.
Did you say your sister-in-law's boyfriend?
sister-in-law's boyfriend.
So stranger.
No. I've known him for a while.
I'm just kidding.
Nice, Jim.
I know
Nice.
you're
I'm just kidding.
The nice one, Jim.
Yeah, the other thing that seems to be predominating my feed right now is betas. And in my mind, that just shows you how slow things are right now in the Apple world.
Yeah.
That the betas are the big news. Somebody said it really well on, I guess it was either over the weekend or on Monday, that Apple event season is over. Now we're into the shopping season, and we'll come out the other end in January. And that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. No, and as I mentioned before the show, obviously you want to hear a discussion about beta. I know you hear it on my show, but it's always interesting to see what is going to be coming. The Mac Rumors obviously always provides a good everything new breakdown of what's going to be coming, but because you have to kind of expect that the 15.2 is, in the case of iOS, and iPadOS is going to be coming relatively soon here, because they're already adding a few more features. So. Yeah,
well, I mean, just because we're at the end of the year, I mean, the progress marches on, and so
right.
And I know we also have talked to death the idea that we didn't see new M1. I want to make sure I say it right. M1 iMacs, just because all the laptops and everything are so hot right now that they can't keep those in stock. Why would they add something else that they can't keep in stock? So,
I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, because in the past they've done updates to iMacs and even announced them late in the year. But if they're having component supply issues, then they have to focus. I saw something somewhere on, I don't know, was it Twitter or somewhere on one of my RSS feeds, that somebody was criticizing Apple, for allocating components to iPhones. Well, of course they're going to do it, right? It's the biggest selling by volume. It's probably among some of the highest margin products that they sell, because people seem to reflexively go to higher memory storage capacity devices, which are really sweet from a margin perspective. So of course Apple would be allocating to that device away from maybe desktop iMacs, or maybe some of the other notebook or minis.
I can't imagine that there would be very many components that would be, common, that, we have to make less iMacs in order to make more phones.
I think
seems like that would be a pretty narrow.
Yeah, but it's a lot of the commodity low end stuff, like capacitors, diodes, resistors.
There's none of those in a phone.
Yeah, there are.
There's no discrete components in a phone.
Yeah, there are. There's go look at some of the iFixit breakdown. There are capacitors and other things on those. Certainly not as many as you have on the motherboard of a Mac or something, but still, if you're shipping tens of millions of phones, even if it has a fifth the components of say a MacBook Air, it adds up pretty quick.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. Web it's an interesting way to say it, Web. With all the supply constraints this year, I think Christmas holiday will be odd, and a lot of delayed giving. And I think odd is a really good word, Web, because right now we're seeing, the other thing that's really hot in my feeds has been, the M1 iMac and the iPad Pro, great prices, $100 off, $25 off, $40 off, buy now. And so I can't decide if this is just the retailers trying to make sure they capture whatever holiday gift dollars there are out there and are willing to take a little bit less, or exactly what the thinking is. I know everybody is saying buy early, but some of that has to do with delivery capabilities. So
Chuck, do any of those are they tied to store only? Because it may be a ruse to try to generate physical traffic.
Oh, I think
Well, for sure.
a lot of those are Amazon.
Okay.
So, I would agree with that. But at the end of the day, you still are selling something at a really good price. And so if you're in the market for that particular device, the thing that always annoys me personally about those things is that it's always the base configuration. You almost never see anything beyond a base configuration for a deal.
And on Amazon, they have a lot of whatever they call their refurbished equipment as well. So
Right.
Without seeing any of the specific ads you're referring to, would be curious to know if it's on a new gear or if they're offering discounts on refurbed equipment.
I think all the ones I've seen are new gear.
They're new.
Yeah, absolutely. I seldom see ads for refurbs. I mean, I know they're there. I just don't see
But
them.
you're not seeing this sort of ad for like the new MacBook Pros, right?
No.
No. We're usually it's the base
No.
configuration of the M1s.
Look at M1.
Well, so that
MacBook Air.
that's last year's model now. Doesn't seem they're trying to get people. Yeah, forget about those shiny new MacBook Pros, which you can only buy from Apple, and buy something from us.
That's an interesting point, Jim. I hadn't thought about it that way because it still feels like the M1 Air is new, but you're not wrong. It's been out there since what, January, February? So-
Last November.
Yeah, I think it started. That's one of the now. So I think it started shipping certainly by December of last year.
Was it December? Okay.
Yeah, it was December. November. Sorry, I have
I think it was
the
November.
Mac Mini. The Mac Mini actually was November.
The Mac Mini, the Air, and the 13-inch Pro, they all came out at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Time
Well,
flies.
it's just one more thing to chalk up to the time warp that has been 2021. Today's edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Upstart, fair and fast personal loans. Visit upstart.com/MacVoices and find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments. Would you like to uncomplicate your life, at least from the financial perspective, and save yourself some money along the way? You should take a good hard look at Upstart for a personal loan from $1,000 to $50,000. Fair because they don't just use your FICO score when considering your loan request. They take other things like your income and current employment into consideration. Their approach lets them not only take a broader look at your application, but also access rates that can help you get out from under those high credit card rates. Fast because it's all done online. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you visit upstart.com/MacVoices. That's Upstart, UPSTART.com/MacVoices. Don't forget to use my URL to let them know I sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan applications. Visit upstart.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Upstart for their support of MacVoices.
Yeah, the other thing I was mentioning, because I'm dealing with in the enterprise, is the supply constraints. Try to order a laptop from Dell right now. They're pushing 80 and 90-day lead times to be able to order a laptop. And people in the enterprise are just you better order now and have it ready for March or April of next year. It's getting worse and worse, and I think this could also affect with Apple too, because I've got there's people who've got the MacBook Pros, the base model, the M1 Pro. It's not shipping until the end of this month and beginning of December at this point. It might probably later now. So you got that to deal with as well.
I'm still waiting on my Apple Watch 7.
Yeah, there you go.
And let's see, today is what? Yeah. So I'm just starting to move into the window that it said I could expect to see it. And so far, I haven't received any notification that it is even being prepped for shipping.
Yeah.
So,
Chuck, how long ago did you place your order?
I think that one was 11 minutes past the hour on the launch date.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. I was one of those that I didn't quite get there, hit the button in time for whatever reason. And I slipped right away into what we all thought would be the second or third round of shipping. And now I'm And by the way, I'm not complaining about it. I just think it's indicative of the situation.
Right.
That
that just proves you that you took 11 minutes to place an order for a device. Like when I ordered the 13 Pro Max, and luckily I was able, and I got delayed because of the credit card problem. Luckily, I got it to come that following Friday, but that just tells you that, as they were warning, that the supplier constraints for the Apple Watch 7 Series 7 was really low.
Yeah. And I don't think any of us are complaining about it. I'm certainly not complaining about that. These are just observations about, A, the supply chain and what's going on, and B, Apple devices and their popularity and the demand for them.
Yeah, some of this happens every year.
Yeah, but this year's worse.
I mean, it's worse, but it's not like it's 10 times worse. It's maybe 50% worse or something.
Not so far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, though, on the subject of refurbished, sort of, I was in Best Buy this week here locally, and I always swing by the refurbished, the returned area to see what's there and see if there might be any deals. And there was a whole lot of gear there that, was discounted. Obviously, it had been returned. Not a single Apple product was there. So take that for what it's worth.
How about Apple peripherals?
Maybe people don't return that stuff to Best Buy.
I don't know.
No, I've seen returned items that they would resell as open box or Apple.
I'm not saying never, but that's probably not the first place most people go for Apple stuff or to return Apple stuff.
Well, we're sort of back to
I agree with Jim. Yeah.
Yeah, but the first part of the conversation, just like Amazon, typically when you walk in there, you get the stock builds. You don't get any configuration options.
Right.
Brad pointed out that B&H offers some units that otherwise would be built to order from Apple. They buy them on spec. Excellent point.
Yes, they do.
Point.
And I've heard on some podcasts and Slack channels of developers walking into an Apple store and getting a high-end MacBook Pro Max build. Like apparently they have like almost the top configuration in Apple stores. I think everything except it's not the 8 terabyte, but it's like 64 gig, 4 terabyte, and I've heard some stories of people like they had an order, online, and it wasn't supposed to come for 3 weeks, and they went to the Apple store, and oh gosh, they have it right here, and I can just walk out with it.
I think that's true. I've heard that, and I know my own, experience. Say back in 2013 when I bought a MacBook Air, then it was pretty richly configured at that time, and I found one of 3 Apple stores in the Bay Area. The Los Gatos store had it in stock. So ordered it and drove down there. And that's for any of your listeners that are in California. In the Bay Area, the Los Gatos Apple store, I think, is under-discovered or underappreciated resource because it's easy to get in and out. It's easy to get appointment times if you need to go in for service, and they seem to have a lot of higher-end configuration gear available there. Then this year, when I bought this M1 MacBook Air, again, it's maxed out on memory and middle of the road on disk storage. But it was available at the Apple original Apple campus in Cupertino, not their space station campus, but the other one a couple miles away. So I think they know that a certain amount that people buy the higher end configurations, or to get it now, that they will convince themselves to trade up to the higher end configurations. So that's why they have them available at retail.
Excellent point. Yeah.
Los Gatos is a swanky area that's in Silicon Valley too.
It is.
And we're talking about those options being available at Apple stores. not at Best Buys. Although
Right.
Brad says a client of his walked out of a local Best Buy with the new MacBook Pro. Brad, I'm assuming that's one of the standard configurations and not
Yeah,
one
I
of the
would
higher
bet.
ends we're talking about. But still, the fact that there was a new MacBook Pro there, that's really interesting.
So,
I'm gonna ask-
Apple obviously set aside some for retail, which they usually do.
So let me ask a question, and I mean this to be provocative. And I'm wondering how much of people's desire, apart from hard drive capacity, where depending on how much data you have, how much you need to work with, that can dictate what size you need. But in terms of processors, speed, number of cores, whether it's 8 or 16 gigabytes of memory, I would assert that for a lot of people, the base configurations are more than sufficient for what they need, and it's only driven by ego or uncertainty or envy, that leads people to trade up and get more. So, provocative thought. What do you all think?
Obviously, I'm hanging out with developers, so I think developers. I've seen benchmarks. Here's Xcode compiles on the different configurations, and doesn't seem like more GPU cores. That doesn't matter for Xcode,
Right.
but the CPU cores matter and the RAM matters. And people have put up some pretty eye-popping numbers, and I've seen some stories of some big companies that are like, "Oh, we're giving every developer a new machine, maxed out." And the discussion online is, that's probably a bargain for these companies, because they're paying a fortune to these people, and if they can do their bills in a third of the time, that's that doesn't mean they're going to be able to work 3 times as fast, but they might be able to work 50% faster, and that's way more than the price of that would pay for the price of the machine in like 60 days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's
and not just the delta, like the whole price of the machine.
Yeah. So that's a specific case.
Yeah, Mark. I mean, I know you're baiting us a little bit in a good-natured way. I think part of it, though, there are 2 factors, at least in my mind, when I was making a purchasing decision. That first of all, here we are. We've said it a million times. We're in a transition phase. So the M1 MacBook Air with 8 or 16 is pretty darn good, and you don't always seem to strain it too much. But I also wasn't running my main workflows in that. I mean, I was almost doing test workflows and using it as a supplemental machine. So for my main machine, if anything, I'm going to err on the high side, simply because I don't have the other factors. I have no option to upgrade anything. Short of plugging in an external SSD for storage, I don't have any option to upgrade the RAM, and I don't have any option to upgrade the internal storage. So naturally, I'm going to look at it and say, look at the delta between the 16 and the 64. And if I'm going to keep this machine for any length of time, and if I really need it to perform, I'm going to go ahead and buy the 64. Do I need the 64? I won't know until I start putting it through its paces. Maybe not. Maybe maybe I and a lot of other people will have overbought, given the power of the M1 Max. But
you don't want to regret it. You don't want to regret it either, because you're stuck with what you buy. I mean, you can't. Not the old days where you could upgrade your RAM anymore. So you might as well, if you're side on the caution of the largest amount of RAM you can get, especially at the workflow that you do, and then you'll feel better that you have it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I would say that sort of if you're like Chuck or like Jim and other developers, if time and throughput is your key buying, your key metric for success, then it probably makes sense. I marvel at a lot of people say, oh, well, I need all this memory because I load really big images in Photoshop. Well, I think that's nullified by, if you look at, the amount of RAM that they have, number one, that's integrated on the same die, that has, incredible, bandwidth, as well as SSDs, are way faster than spinning drives ever were. That I think there's a lot of performance benefit there that just I don't think is fully sunk into people, because I hear too many other people talk about I have this device and it's really fast, and I never taxed it at all, and they're not working on honking big images. These are more sort of traditional photographers, where if it's 4K image, it's a big image. So I'm thinking that it's good that people have choices, but the hard part to know is really what your workload is, and does your workload need more disk I/O or I/O, to from the processor to the GPU or other things, and it changes very much depending on the application. And I've seen that since some of the M1 and the M1 Pro Max have come out, depending on the sites you look at, you get all sorts of different interpretations, because they're all throwing different type of workloads at it, as well as some common synthetic benchmarks. But just stirring the pot, just trying to stimulate some discussion.
The panel will be back in the next edition of Mac Voices to finish up a discussion of demand for Apple products. Then we get into a debate of configurations and what considerations are topmost in the minds of the panel when they order new Mac hardware. That's next time on Mac Voices, and I hope you'll join us. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.